On October 17, 2012, a U.S. Army observation unit stationed in a remote mountain valley reported a series of unexplained psychological incidents. The installation was designated Outpost Sparrow. 9 soldiers were assigned to the location. The mission parameters were routine, observation, surveillance, signal monitoring. The valley itself had no confirmed hostile presence, no civilian population, and no recorded military activity. However, within 6 days of deployment, the entire unit suffered a catastrophic psychological breakdown. Of the 9 soldiers stationed at Outpost Sparrow, only 2 survived. Both survivors gave identical testimony. The following report contains reconstructed radio logs, survivor interviews, and recovered field notes. Some material has been redacted. Outpost Sparrow was positioned in a narrow valley within the Hindu Kush mountain range. Satellite coverage of the area was inconsistent due to terrain interference. Command believed insurgent forces may have been using the valley as a hidden transit corridor. The observation unit deployed to the outpost consisted of the following personnel: Sergeant Daniel Voss, Unit Leader; Corporal Adrian Reyes, Communications Specialist; Aaron Grant, Heavy Weapons Private; Luke McKenna, Scout 5. Additional soldiers assigned to perimeter patrol and surveillance operations. Initial deployment proceeded without incident. However, multiple soldiers began reporting unusual environmental conditions. According to Sergeant Voss's field log, the valley displayed an abnormal absence of wildlife. No birds, no insects, no animal tracks, no audible ecosystem activity of any kind, even at night. Private McKenna recorded the following observation in his personal notebook. Command dismissed the observation. No further investigation was conducted. The first recorded incident occurred during perimeter watch on night 1. Private McKenna and Specialist Grant were assigned observation duty from 0100 to 0300 hours. According to both soldiers, McKenna suddenly reported hearing a whisper. Grant reported hearing nothing. McKenna initially believed the sound to be environmental. However, the whisper persisted. He later described it as fragments of speech that never formed actual words. Approximately 5 minutes later, the whisper stopped. Moments afterward, Specialist Grant asked McKenna a question. "Grant, why do you keep saying my name?" McKenna responded that he had not spoken. Grant insisted that McKenna had repeated his name 3 times. No audio recording of the incident exists. However, both soldiers reported the event independently. Beginning on the 3rd night, multiple soldiers reported identical dreams. Each described seeing a tall figure standing on a mountain ridge above the outpost. The figure was described as motionless, watching the base, observing the soldiers. Each night, the figure appeared closer. Sergeant Voss documented the reports, but attributed them to sleep deprivation. No action was taken. 3 nights later, the dreams stopped, because the soldiers were no longer asleep. At approximately 2200 hours on day 4, Corporal Reyes reported abnormal radio activity. The communications unit began transmitting static despite being idle. Within seconds, the static changed. It began producing distorted audio patterns. Reyes initially believed the signal to be interference. However, the transmission contained recognizable audio, specifically the voices of the soldiers stationed at Outpost Sparrow. The radio was replaying conversations from earlier that day, word for word, voice for voice, but the audio was distorted. slowed, warped, as if something were attempting to imitate human speech. Reyes disconnected the power supply immediately. The transmission ceased. However, 3 soldiers later reported hearing Reyes speaking to someone inside the communications tent. Reyes insists he never spoke. By day 5, the unit began exhibiting severe psychological stress. Soldiers reported hearing teammates calling their names from outside the perimeter, even when those teammates were accounted for inside the barracks. Equipment disappeared and reappeared hours later. Doors opened without explanation. Private McKenna reported experiencing intrusive thoughts that did not feel like his own. During a recorded conversation with Sergeant Voss, McKenna made the following statement. McKenna, it's not talking to me. Voss, what do you mean? McKenna, it's thinking, and I can hear it. At approximately 0200 hours on day 6, Private Ellis exited the outpost perimeter without authorization. Sergeant Voss located him approximately 50 meters from the base. Ellis was standing motionless, facing the mountains. When questioned, Ellis responded in an unusually calm tone. It wants us to listen. Sergeant Voss asked Ellis what he meant. Ellis responded, they're loud when you think. Ellis then attempted to draw Sergeant Voss's sidearm. Sergeant Voss discharged his weapon. Private Ellis was killed instantly. According to Voss, Ellis continued whispering after being shot. The last recorded phrase was, "It's getting closer." On the 7th night, outpost radar detected movement on the northern ridge. Sergeant Voss used binoculars to visually confirm the contact. This is the only recorded description of the entity. According to Voss's report, the figure was extremely tall, estimated height between 8 and 9 feet. Its limbs appeared elongated. The skin surface was described as gray and stretched. The head was tilted slightly to one side, as if observing or listening. The entity did not move. It simply watched the outpost. Then something happened. Every soldier on the base reported hearing the same sentence, inside their own minds, not spoken, not heard through the ears, but thought, clear as if it were their own voice. The sentence was identical for every witness. Now I understand you. Following the incident, the unit suffered total psychological breakdown. 2 soldiers opened fire on empty terrain. 1 soldier barricaded himself inside the communications tent. Private McKenna claimed something was walking through his memories. 4 soldiers died during the following 12 hours. Causes include friendly fire and suicide. The remaining soldiers abandoned the outpost. Sergeant Voss and Corporal Reyes were the only survivors to leave the valley. Both soldiers report experiencing the same phenomenon during their escape. As they drove away from Outpost Sparrow, they continued hearing thoughts inside their minds. Not commands, not threats, just curiosity. One repeated question. Where are you going? The official military conclusion classified the incident as a shared psychological episode caused by environmental stress. However, psychological evaluation of both survivors showed no signs of delusion or hallucination. Both testimonies match exactly. Even more concerning, both soldiers reported a continuing symptom. Months after the incident, late at night, just before sleep, they still hear something thinking. The same voice, the same curiosity, the same question. Are there more of you? If this report is accurate, then whatever was in that valley wasn't hunting soldiers. it learned enough, there's no reason to believe it stayed in the valley.